Hi everybody, welcome to the latest These Lads Are Mental. Neil here, one half of These Lads Are Mental, and I'm beside the amazing Mark White from the UK.
Thank you very much. No, lovely.
And where's Gary? Gary, where are you?
I'm a housemate, just watching you two on the couch, casting couch.
Where's your house?
I'm in Sydney as well, mate. I'm about 20 minutes for where you are just now.
Okay.
Not far.
I love how he says house.
Yeah.
What's man this loose house about this house? That was Roundtree's, wasn't it?
Through pastels have it, that's right.
Oh, pretty bad. Yeah, they don't make ads like they used to, remember?
No, they don't know.
Remember the Tango one where like they had the big like you get
Slap to
slapped?
faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the mobile thing as well. Yeah, done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's the creativity gone, eh?
Yeah. Well, look, welcome to the show, everybody. It feels a bit high tech this week. we're still on Zoom, but we've got wireless mics, thanks to Mark's tech genius, Jamie. And Mark is from Run Grateful. So, look, why don't we kick off by telling us who you are, where you're from, and what's Run Grateful all about?
Yeah, Mark from the UK, just outside of London, and kind of born and bred, born in North London. Big Tottenham Hotspur fan. For those of you that
Big Ange.
this big ad.
He's a Celtic fan. So.
Oh yeah. Oh okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know the kind of feeling that I've got these days. Then.
A different gear.
Oh man, I'm full of hope and joy.
Big man's a legend.
That man is quickly becoming one of my favourite people in the world, apart from Neil, of course. But yeah, listen, Run Grateful is something that I'm heavily involved in. It's my everything now, which I'm super chuffed about, and I'm very, very passionate about it. So we're all about taking people on a more mindful movement journey, and in particular connecting movement with gratitude. Run Grateful's quite self-explanatory in that sense, but we're big fans of any kind of movement. If we're lucky enough to move, then that's a big thumbs up. And if if we can, it's a superpower. So let's use that for the greater good. And the running tends to be our vehicle. And yeah, there's loads of things that we do under the Run Grateful umbrella. One of them you're going to experience tomorrow, Neil.
Very nervous.
Depending on when people will listen to this, but whatever the date is tomorrow, I'm losing track of all these days and times. But so something I think the world is a better place with Run Grateful in it. So I'm just doing my very, very best to progress it and see where it lands, really.
Yeah, it's been
so
hard.
With the Run Grateful, this obviously podcast came out about quite short notice, and Sally did mention he actually asked me to do the Run Grateful thing tomorrow, but I've got a course on. Could you just explain to me and to everyone else? I do know what it's all about, but in more detail what Run Grateful actually is.
All right, so here we are. It's that time of year again when Run Grateful facilitate an amazing, immersive experience centred around movement and gratitude. We're here in the wonderful Rye, 6th of September, just awaiting the people who have been travelling around the UK to be with us today as we embark on the challenge of starting with a 5K and then running a Grateful mile on the hour, every hour for the following 23 hours with a load of stuff in between. We're going to capture it all the best we can. Really looking forward to it. Don't just run Grateful.
Yeah. So, like I said, under the umbrella of Run Grateful, we do various things. All of it is centered around the power of a grateful mile. So that's fundamentally at the core of what we believe. We believe in. We believe a mile is a powerful thing. How you use that time, and as I've shared, kind of, we're lucky enough to walk a mile or run a mile, then that's a great thing. So, we're not asking people to run marathons or anything off the bat. But yeah, I suppose one of the events that we are best known for and where Run Grateful was born from was me taking on the challenge back in early COVID days when we were allowed to leave the house for longer than an hour, which was our social prescription. I think it was disguised as at that time, wasn't it? It feels like a lifetime ago now, but when we were allowed to venture out for longer than an hour, I come across a challenge of running a mile on the hour every hour for 24 hours. But there is a 5K thrown into the mix. So collectively over the 24-hour period, it's a marathon distance. And I chose to dedicate every mile to gratitude and, people that I was grateful for and experiences that I've had. And I jumped to my social media and I started to share about these people and experiences and, shared photos and videos that I had related to what I was talking about. And it just went down really well, and I loved it. I immersed myself in this day and I didn't know what was to come because it's quite spontaneous. And people loved reading it and me sharing about it. And because mindful movement and gratitude running, etc., was part of my running relationship for many years prior to 2020, it was just another example of where you take certain things for granted. I didn't know this was potentially new news to others. So at the end of, this day, I was just like, wow, this can't just be for me. How can we kind of create an opportunity and for others to maybe experience some of what I just did? What would that be called? And it's in me to kind of come up with things creatively, I suppose. And I named it Run Grateful. And 24 hours isn't for everybody. Even Neil was a little bit hesitant to think, oh, okay, what's to come? And that's where the Grateful Mile come from. Okay, let that be the buy-in. Let that be the introduction into what we're about. And wherever it leads, we can hopefully guide you through that path, really. So yeah, we run a mile on the hour every hour for 24 hours. And in between the miles, we do some amazing stuff. Breath work, meditations, mobility, yoga. We share gratitude, we connect on a certain level. And yeah, we just trust it and we show up and we jump in and what happens, but it's an intimate affair, and
How many guys? There's 20 of us, is there?
yeah, so we kind of max it out always. I've done it a few times in the UK. This is the first time we've kind of ventured abroad, literally the other side of the world. But yeah, we max it out at 20. I think that's a nice number. I think there's an intimacy about that, which means it doesn't turn into anything that it isn't. We don't want it to be mass participation. We don't want flags and bells and whistles and music and all this kind of, the stripped back nature of it and the rawness of it, I think is really powerful. There's enough glitz and glamour out there. And yeah, we don't need to close roads. We don't need dozens of marshals to facilitate, these events and volunteers. All we need is 1 mile and 20 odd people. But yeah, we're being Men's Mental Health Month. We're doing it. We've got a group of guys coming together tomorrow at the pavilion in Bondi. And yeah, I'm really.
Yeah, we've got it's a who's who of celebrities, including myself. Now we've got Trent from the 440 Club who's helped organise it, right?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, yourself and Trent have been fundamental with, I suppose, the team really of just doing what we can to bring it together. And 440 are obviously very well respected, and just a great community. And Trent's a great guy.
We have Rory Warnock, who's been on this show as well before, Breathwork guy. Is there anyone else of note, or what's the general mix of people? Like, because I know Rory, there's a few other guys that are ultra marathon runners. Mm-hmm. You obviously do this all the time. So Trent runs all day, every day kind of thing. What's the mix of the 20 lads? Is there any lay people like myself on it, or?
Well, listen, there's so many layers to this event, which is just, I don't want to say too much.
He's keeping it all under wraps.
No, I've come up this morning. You're kind enough to introduce me to another amazing group that goes on here every week, and it's been an amazing experience these last few days, just being connected and introduced to this great place, which I've experiencing for the first time. But back to the event, it's with you doing it tomorrow. There's only, because the beauty of it is the unknown and the uncertainty, and I think that it kind of replicates life in a lot of ways. Like I associate the miles that we do with the days of life, and just we never quite know what might be around the corner. And you take it a day at a time, you take it a mile at a time, and the beauty of this, one of the beautiful things around this event, I've already shared a few, is just the amount of people that can kind of gravitate towards it and have their own experience. We've got the ultra runners, which kind of run 100 miles plus, or 100k or 50k, a fair distance. 5k is a long way if you don't run it. A mile is a long way if you're not used to it. And then, for them to stop after every mile is alien to them. So they have their own experience. And then you have people that have maybe never done a marathon before, and this is a great way of doing your first marathon. So there's loads of stuff in between. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, male, female, black, white, Australian, English. This is the beauty of gratitude. It's a global currency, and the movement side of things enables us to come together in a way. And it's a great thing. And I believe, we're already on our way to taking it around the world and doing some good and having a large impact with it.
Quality, mate. Aye, good story. That cool. What was the reason for you getting stuck into it and start? Obviously, COVID was a sort of trigger for a lot of people, because a lot of people took up running, didn't they? Because that was really the only thing you could do. Was it as simple as that? Is that what made you get stuck into it?
Run Grateful in particular, I've been running since around 2010, 11. I wanted to give up mobile lights because them little rascals were. Yeah, they were powerful little things they are. And,
marble, they're strong. Those are they heavy ones? Those ones?
Yeah, no, they're the mobile reds. I had a few of them in my lifetime. But mobile lights were just. I didn't want to smoke no more. I had 2 daughters that were fairly young at the time. They were starting to read. They were like 3, 4s or whatever. And as we know, over the last few years in particular, on the packs, there's some nasty images and some nasty words like smoking kills. And, I already knew, I've lived in a sober life since 2002. So I knew that the smoking was the last thing to go from like an addictive point of view. And a good pal of mine just suggested, let's give up smoking together. Let's kind of support each other on that journey. And why don't we give running a go? He'd had evidence in the past of running. He used to be like an elite boxer and professional boxer in the early 90s. So he had a level of evidence which he knew the value that it brought to kind of have that fitness lifestyle. I never really. I got into Stella Artois and cigarettes and drugs and other bits quite early on. So I was never a professional boxer, put it that way. So anyway, fast forward, I trusted this man. He's like a brother to me, and we were good friends. And I thought, I'll give running a go. And so that's what got me into running. And I suppose with the sobriety journey I was on, things like gratitude and other aspects of like the wellness way of life was, in me and part of my fabric now. And I've built some positive habits over the years. So to kind of combine my running with stuff around, in that nature was fairly obvious to me.
But didn't you have a big crossroads where you were running another organization which COVID kind of got in the way, and then that?
Yeah, I settled down early, and I've not shared this story actually for a while. Yeah, so I settled down early. I sobered up in 2002. I was 18, 19. I had my 19th birthday in rehab, and then within maybe 18 months, 2 years of being sober and leaving rehab and just trying to get my life back together, I met my wife. She turned out to be my wife, and had my daughters, etc. And then I fell into a job quite quickly, which was quite kind, maybe fun. I mean, I worked very hard, but yeah, financially there was a bit of disposable income every month, and it was cool. And I was a new dad and all that kind of jazz. But it wasn't really what I was born to do. I didn't feel like. So fast forward to around about 2013, I had a few ideas, and running actually really put fuel on the fire when it comes to this, and it kind of just brought about this creativity and various ideas that I had, and my curiosity was starting to kind of play a massive part in like, okay, what could these look like? What could I do with this, but still having that balance between the responsibilities that I had and, and with some of what I was up to in life, that kind of value of community and being of service and giving back was a huge player for me and something I was deeply passionate about. So I founded a community interest company called Your Town, and that was off the back of a running event in my hometown of Hoddesdon in Hertfordshire, just outside of North London. And it was all around where we lived and about how we felt about where we lived, how we contributed, how we showed up. And then I used running as the vehicle for that. So we created this great event called Give Your Town a Run Around. And, that was closed roads, a good few people, 1,000 odd people, and a lot went into it. And so then I transitioned out of the job I was in for a few years and just thought, I'm going to give this a crack, as Ange would say. I'm going to give this a crack, and I'm going to honour my creativity and maybe my entrepreneurial spirit. And so Your Town was a community interest company that existed for a few years. We had Your Town Runners, Your Town Walkers, Give Your Town a Run Around. We were growing out across the UK, and I was getting recognised as just somebody who's a bit forward thinking, just especially in the community space.
And was that, if I jump in, was the goal of that to support low socioeconomic areas, like get people off the streets, kind of give them a purpose? Was that the idea?
Yeah, all of that was in the fabric of it. It was, as always, and there's a common thread going through Run Grateful as well. It was always about kind of provoking thoughts in others, and not necessarily in a subtle way, but in a way in which it wasn't kind of aggressive, but like
you're going for counselling or whatever.
Yeah, but let's take responsibility, and kind of how can we show, what can we do instead of complaining all the time about if only this had happened, if only the council did this, if only this didn't, what can we do? And collectively as a community, if we're all chipping away at these things and coming together and making things happen and making change, then listen, no place is perfect. So Your Town was an opportunity to create kind of opportunities and spaces for people to come together, care about where they lived, connect and contribute. And as town centre vibrancy and especially in the UK, and how kind of high streets were being used was different to how they were used to being used because the internet and shopping malls, and so it's a big conversation. It's complex, and then you get the people complaining about things are not how they used to, and they never were, because life is always progressive. It's always
the whole back in my day.
Yeah,
we used to do
exactly. Yeah, and everyone's always saying, I'm saying that now, you know, we always say what our parents said, and so we're not reinventing the wheel here, but it is the harsh reality of the world, you know, that things do move forwards, and if you don't keep up, but you've always got people and blockers around, you know, people, especially with local, I don't know what they're called over here, but like local authorities and councils, I think it's the same thing. Yeah. You know, they're institutionalized, they're kind of risk adverse, there's a lot centered around fear, they're trying to please everybody all the time, and it's an impossible job. So that's where we kind of strip it back and think, okay, just like people don't listen to the mum and dads, maybe they don't listen to local councils. So if your town could create a brand which is maybe similar voice, because we still want the same outcomes, but maybe messaged in a slightly different way, then you know, and it's a beautiful thing. But then COVID happened, and it still exists.
I was going to say, oh, that sounds great, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, you know, we couldn't see each other, but and most of it was in person. You know, and
what was? Do you mind me asking? What was COVID like in the UK? Because in Australia here, I don't know if you remember, Gary, or it was all kind of, I suppose, subjective to your area. We were in Bondi. There was that shutdown for like a week or two where you couldn't leave, but then outside of that, it was pretty relaxed here. I remember ringing my mates back in Ireland when I was walking down on the beach, and everyone was around. They're like, "How are you doing this? Like, we're all in lockdown." Like, was it tough where you were? Like, was it hardcore lockdown?
Yeah, it's so surreal, wasn't it? It was so surreal. I mean, you reflect now and think, wow, kind of what a moment in time that was. But
it's mad to think it's already come and gone.
Yeah,
like
4 years ago nearly.
Like
4 years ago. So yeah, you know, true gratitude style. You know, it's glass half full. Some beautiful things come out of it. You know, i.e., run grateful. And I suppose a lot of people's experiences, not everyone's, it did impact. You know, and like I said, I could choose to maybe look at it through a certain perspective, which is, certain things were ruined in inverted commas, but it was what it was. A lot of people lost a lot of things, and it impacted. And you know, and you hear some horror stories around how loved ones and parents, and you know, so that is just horrendous. And from the outside looking in, thank God I didn't get to that level with my pops, who I was very close to. My granddad, he passed away literally a week before, and the idea of that, you know, in passing maybe a few weeks on and not being able to see him, I mean, it don't even bear thinking about. But yeah, you know, from my own reality, I was with my girls and my wife at the time, and we were indoors spending time together and jumping on Zooms for work, and there was still a lot of stuff to sort out because things were still existing and live. But I was doing my ice baths, I was doing my gyms, I was doing my walks and doing my steps, and had my dog, and so it wasn't outrageously bad, and I remember everyone being really chuffed that the weather was actually really good, which helps.
You were still in your sobriety at this stage? Yeah, this is...
Yeah, I was like 18 years sober then. So, I remember it actually.
Because there was a big, like when COVID did happen here, there was definitely the cocktails on Monday kind of thing. People, I remember even there was a stage where it was almost like every night you almost felt like you kind of deserved a drink because... The whole big world, thing. You know, the whole world was under so much stress.
Yeah, early retirement for a lot of people, wasn't it? They kind of see it as that, and because you know the furlough things and people getting paid to stay at home, and so like the drinking become maybe a bit more, but you did hear horror stories, you know, and it is definitely something that I'm sensitive to, but you know, like domestic violence and all that. So as much as I can only share about my reality and what happened, but you did hear that some big stressful things went on for a lot of people, just being enclosed and not being able to do what they wanted to do, and you know, and being told what to do, and it really heightened a lot of. And then you had a lot of big global things happen, like Black Lives Matter all happened at that time, and it was a real unique time, wasn't it?
But then Boris was still having a few parties, wasn't he?
All right, we found that out later on. But yeah, listen, everyone's at it, and but yeah, listen, whatever your opinion is, and
I remember because Sonny, my young fella, he was born in the COVID era kind of thing. Yeah, wow. So when Sue was
born or conceived,
both. He was conceived, because COVID came in 2019.
2020, it was 2019, Feb, March.
Yeah, he was born in 2021, so he would have been. Yeah. But when Sue was pregnant, I couldn't go to any of the pre stuff, and then when the day he was born, I was allowed, but we had to get a check like every day, like for about 3 weeks in the lead up, which was a nightmare. And then we had a doula, which is like a specialist kind of midwife that kind of helps you privately in the lead up. She wasn't allowed in the room or anything like that. And it was all I had to wear a mask and everything in the room with her. Like it was like,
crazy. I mean, talking about Australia, so the guy actually that got me into running that I spoke about, his son come to Australia in 2020, just before COVID, 2019, mid-20s or whatever he was, and he actually got diagnosed with leukemia during COVID, and obviously the parents couldn't come out, and I've just done the flight, and listen, you always, it's known to be like the longest flight ever, and it just, the stories around what some people went through because they had to do the flight, which is bad enough, knowing your son's going through chemo here on the other side of the world, and then to be in a hotel room for 2 weeks, being served food at a door, and then knowing your son, like I said, you could do it back like it didn't happen.
Funny you mentioned about hotels, and because we've been talking about marathons, I actually knew an Irish guy who lives here in Melbourne. He used to be a former AFL player. He he was in lockdown for 2 weeks, which is, you had to do your quarantine when you flew. And so in the 2 weeks, he decided to run a marathon in his bedroom in the hotel room.
Wow.
So he measured out what a lap of his room was, which was, I don't know, 10 meters or something like that. And he literally,
mad,
he ran a marathon and he live streamed it. So he was going like that all day. Like,
wow.
It was insane.
Oh my God, that'd be rough, that cycling.
You're going insane.
Oh my, I couldn't do that, man. Couldn't do that.
Yeah, my little thing was is trivial, but as you were saying, a lot of people lost loved ones, couldn't see them. Like it was a tough
horrific time. Yeah.
And thinking of your story, if you don't mind sharing, you mentioned that you're in 18, 19, what was going on? What led you to the kind of into that, area of alcohol and drugs? Have you been able to put your finger on that, or?
I suppose, a lot of work's gone into getting a little bit as much clarity as I needed, or I felt like I needed to kind of sift through the denial, because at the time I didn't think I had problems, and I mean, it's a.
Did you have a stable family and all that kind of stuff, or?
I grew up thinking that something wasn't maybe completely as it should be, whatever that is, and I suppose from the outside looking at the 2.4 children and happy families and the things you watch in movies, and so I know that doesn't exist for everybody. Like it's it is what it is for a lot of people, and there's ups and downs and rounds and things happen, and unfortunately, but it wasn't the worst childhood in the world by far, But I kind of, as time was progressing, I got a sense or an intuition that maybe things weren't completely right. My dad wasn't present all the time. There wasn't no blame at the time because I didn't think that anything untoward was going on. Later on down the line, you kind of find out that a few things had happened, and my mum and dad actually weren't together, and we didn't know this, and so there was things that contributed maybe to certain feelings that I was having, but then alongside that, I was living my own life around. I was very insecure, very inadequate, very there's a lot of fear and anxiety in me, and fear of just living in fear, and then as my behaviour went to different levels, just through addictions, the dishonesty and the lying, and all of a sudden you just get caught in this dark trap of not knowing who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what you want to do, why you're here, the suicidal kind of tendencies, and I wasn't doing esteemable acts, and my self-worth was on the floor, and just no guidance, no direction, just completely uninspired. And then there was a consequence to something, and I got kind of pushed into a corner to make a choice. You either go and seek help for what is clearly a massive problem with drugs, drink included, because for me it's all like mind altering stuff, or we're going to take you to the police. And I was like, okay, well, I might go down the other direction.
That your parents, was it? Or
it's my parents, and a couple of other things were going on at the time, and it's just consequences all way. I could never drink without consequence, and there was always something happening, and I was just obsessed, and just, like I said, bang in denial and in my own little world. And
well, credit to you, because you've been sober since what, 19 or 20?
My 19th birthday in rehab, so I went in June, and my birthday's July, and I've just turned 40, so 21 years this year.
I mean, that is also amazing in its own right, because at that age to make that decision is a very mature thing to do, and also credit to you, because a lot of people, takes them a long time to come to that. It could be in their 30s or 40s or 50s before they go, I need to knock this on the head, where you did that as a teenager essentially.
Very lucky, I suppose, to be put in a, and it's not anything, they say largely, your surroundings kind of determine where you are and who you are, and it was you are the 5 people you surround yourself with, and because I didn't think I was up to anything
Too bad.
Listen, it wasn't rocket science. I knew a lot of what I was doing wasn't ideal, and I knew you'd rather not do these things. So I wasn't stupid, but I was powerless, and I didn't have a choice. As I see it, then I did after I got some acceptance around it, because then I had a choice to make. But at that time, it was just what we did, and I was surrounding myself with people that were kind of doing similar things. And so, like you mentioned, you're like 16, 17, 18 is what you do. You're exploring, you're curious, you're trying things, you're going clubbing and bars and drinking and everything that involves.
And all it takes is what we were speaking about this yesterday. All it takes, I didn't take any drugs until I was about 21, and then it was just a bloke who came into a job that I was working on, who knew a guy who could get him ecstasy, and then it was literally like, I'll get you some. I was like, I'm not sure. And then there was a festival, and then bam. And then I went on like a 2-3 year kind of.
Yeah. I loved them for a little period.
Yeah. But it can be just one small thing that can kind of set you down that path, or one mate that comes into your life that kind of influences you in a way. And then it's like, holy shit, And it could have turned out that after going to rehab, it could have turned out that I was just a bit of a problem drinker. I was just young, stupid, and like I said, maybe in inverted commas, fell in with the wrong crowd and just got into some bad habits and bad routines. But it didn't, it transpired that actually, all these kind of insecurities and inadequacies and fears, etc., were part of a bigger problem. Just kind of how I thought and felt about myself and the world, and my compulsive behaviour and addictive personality meant that there was other things going on, and it was really obvious after a little bit of work and being in rehab and other things and being around certain people, and I felt like that. Okay, I did things like that. I wasn't alone with it. Yes, listen, when I do, I need to work on making amends and other things just to kind of bring balance to the conversation, because I'm not all bad, but I need to start. I remember when I was in rehab and I wrote my mum a letter saying that there's going to be probably a couple of people knocking because I am a bit of money, and not for the first time, by the way, and drug dealers and stuff like that. And I was in Wales at this time. That's where and my mum wrote back to me. It's funny because mobile, you had the Nokia 8210s then, so there was no like FaceTimes, and we weren't allowed to use the phones, by the way. No TV. I remember they allowed us to watch England Argentina in the 2002 World Cup. They allowed us that. But anyway, and my mum wrote back saying actions speak louder than words. She'd heard it all before. And that really stayed with me, and I'm just sharing the story now because it's something I still think about, not often, but it comes up. And that was maybe one of the first times where I just had a light bulb moment where I just thought, actually, do you know what? Behaviour is just shocking. It's all about me, that self-centered, selfish behaviour. I don't really care about anyone else, but I do, but I don't, and because my actions are big. And before you know it, I was slipping through the denial, and I surrounded myself with better people and identifying with these great people, and I was getting a bit of hope, and I was getting a bit inspired, and one day rolled into another day, and before you knew it, it's my first birthday, my first Christmas, my first this, my first that, and I was like, wow, all right, the only thing I can't do in life is not drink and take drugs. And everything else, there's a possibility. As long as that stays out of my life, I've got half a chance. And with that mentality, it served me well. And now, but alongside this, 21 years sounds amazing, and it is, and amazing, and I'm absolutely over the moon and chuffed. But I heard early on that sobriety is a state of mind. You can be 21 years a complete dickhead, and so I'll take that with me every day. It's a state of mind, and no day is maybe straightforward. So, but with a clear mind, i.e. alcohol free, like I said, I've got a chance. Yeah.
Well, that's quality, mate. What I'd be curious to know is, so on days like, obviously we talk about mental health a lot in this podcast, so if days where you're having a shit day or shit time, not necessarily a shit day, but a shit time, something goes awry, have you had those temptations creep back into your mind?
No, absolutely not.
That's quality.
But listen, that's a fair amount down the line. At the start, absolutely. As I just mentioned, all the first, because I had no real evidence to suggest I could get through a birthday, a Friday night, a Thursday morning, or whatever. Yeah. That's when it becomes tough, because you need to start to create, I'll say again, but this evidence to suggest it can be done. Because otherwise, the monkey brain's is like, you can't do that, you can't go there and not do that. But when you do it for the first time, it's like, well, actually, I can do it. When you do it for a second time, you're like, well, I did it last time, I can do it again. And when you do it a third and fourth and the fifth time, then it just becomes how it is. So, there was stages in that first period. I don't know exactly, a year, 18 months, 2 years, when you know, every part of your being just wants to act out, and you're having all these feelings and thoughts, and the habits that you created, or the kind of, you know, the messages to your mind was to escape them, you know, and to kind of live with these feelings and to embrace them, and to know that they ain't going to kill you, and to know that, you know, it's not unique, it's your own lived experience. But that takes time, and that takes, you know, effort, and that takes determination, and that takes resilience, and it takes persistence, and it takes everything that you need to live life, really. And whether you're sober or not, you know, you can't be happy all the time. And people say, well, just accept it, or just let it go, or don't, you know, acceptance comes later on, you know, before it, acceptance is just the same as grief and letting go. You know, there's layers and there's stages before you can actually reach a point where you think, okay, do you know what? Thanks for that, but I need to move on. I've just gone through a divorce.
Did you get was there a lot of pressure when you went sober with your mates, whether, look, you fucking softy, you know, like, did you get all that? Like,
yeah.
It's always that, with those ones, it's always like a few mates, similar circumstances to yourself, and when they come out like, no, I'm not drinking, we're like, all right, okay, and you go, you can have one or two, but you're like, no, I'm not drinking. One beer's not going to kill you. You're like, no, but I'm not drinking at all. I can have one. And it's just like Scott, like, no, mate, fuck off. I'm not having any.
Or peer pressure. What's wrong with you? Is the other thing. What's wrong with you if you're not drinking? What do you mean what's wrong with you?
Yeah, and it's one of them ones, isn't it, where at the time, it can be a bit frustrating, and you just kind of think, it gets a bit tiring. But then on the flip side of that, you kind of think, especially, you know, my reality was we were all 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, that kind of era, that kind of age group, and they're not going to think any other way, because that's what you do at that age. So I had to make some tough choices, you know. It's like, okay, how much did I want this, you know? And so I had to kind of disconnect from them all and make a choice to not see them again. Let go of all of them. Yeah, there was two that I stayed friendly with, and they've been amazing. They're still friends today, Katie and Laura. And they've come back into my life later on in various disguises. And listen, we're not tight like we used to, but there's a respect there, and we, you know, they love what I'm doing now, and they champion it, and they like it, and Instagrams, and send me messages, and we bumped into each other. Went to a pal's 40th birthday in the summer, and in a house that we had a lot of good nights in this house. It was like the party house. He had 7 brothers. His mum and dad was always the one that were going away, and it was like, that was the place to be.
That was my house.
And, you know, the first time I've been there in 21 years. And you know, and I bumped into a few pals that I've not seen in 22, 23 years. And
was it triggering and all? Did you like? No,
mate. It was. I'm just not that guy. A lot of them were different. Some of them were exactly the same. But it's nice that there's a like I said, a respect there. It sounds a bit too corporate or whatever the word is, but I'm so far removed from that life now, and so there's no triggers, and it becomes it's just not me. And but there's no kind of, if I walk down the street, I would cross the road, like none of that kind of shame or guilt around anything. I made a choice. It was my life, you know. I had to make a strong choice, because it was ultimately his life or death at one point. So unfortunately, and it slips off my tongue now, you know, it wasn't easy just to kind of say, no, I ain't
It's
coming out.
amazing resilience, though, to be doing that. Like,
as I call it.
Remember when I was 19, 20, you're a fucking idiot, like, you know, to use to go through that. And I don't know whether you relapse right now, but like to have all those mates, I can get that sense of all your mates going, you should be doing this, that, cutting all those ties and sticking to your guns. Like that's it.
It was bigger. It was big at the time, but it needed to be done. And then, like anything in life, whether it be personally or professionally or whatever, sometimes you are kind of, the question is asked: how much do you want this? You know, how much do you want it? How far are you willing to go? How much are you willing to sacrifice for the greater good? Knowing that things need to change, and choices need to be made, and things need to be confronted, and you know, fears need to be faced. And but I was getting encouraged all the time. I was like, no, do you know what? Like this life offers me more than that life, and that life I kind of knew, and no one was forcing me, and that was my. And I remember doing it. I remember sitting. It was 2 days before I was going to rehab, but there was like 6-7 months where I was like in and out of AA, and I was still drinking and using. I was drinking in meetings and fucking popping to toilets and sniffing coke in meetings. Madness for a few months. And I remember I was 2 or 3 days out and about, and I come back. It was early morning, looking out my window, thinking I'm going to rehab in 2 days. What the fuck are you going to do? You've got an amazing opportunity. Not everyone gets this opportunity. You know, I didn't get paid privately. It was all kind of via the state, etc. And I remember saying constantly, okay, when you go there, give it your all. Just with an open mind. This type of language wasn't really in me, but words to that effect. Just, in other words, just go, give it your best. And if at the end of that 3-month period, you're thinking, no, do you know what? Fuck this. I'm just a problem drinker. I'm going through a bit of a dodgy period. and then you can go back to your pals, go back to around my mate's party house every Friday night, because I knew what. But it just so happened that with the honesty and the structures and the guidance that I was getting, and you were sifting through everything and you were doing some work, it was like, no, that's never going to work. There's no doubt in my mind, 100 trillion, no matter what anyone says, what I tell myself or what I used to try to tell myself, there's 1,000,000%. I cannot drink just like one Budweiser, one Stella, one vodka, and like whatever. I just can't do it, and I don't want to. And what's the point? You know, because sometimes, you know, like them mates, as you just described them as, you know, I maybe one and this, that, and the other. Or what if you could take a pill? What if now we're in 2024? I'm sure. I mean, I think there's rumours that they already exist, and I'm not too sure. Yeah, I thought you could take a pill and it would kind of numb that side of your brain that is the Why? Why would I want? Why? You know, it does not interest me whatsoever. I don't miss the taste. I don't miss it. I don't miss anything. You know, and yeah, I don't believe that I've taken these addictions into other areas of my life. I don't believe I'm a workaholic. I'm very passionate about my purpose, and that is through my work. I mean, I had a big conversation with somebody earlier, a big agency. We're going to take this 24-hour event on tour.
Why did you see the balloons in my fucking screen?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
The fuck was that?
Oh my God.
I thought I was taking some of those fucking drugs there. I was like, what the hell's happening here? What the fuck was that?
No, you were just talking about party houses.
Yeah, man.
It's your house, mate. We need to be around yours.
I mate, that's good to come back, mate. It's for the way you live your life now and stuff like that, and the way you explained how you do things now is, mate, Sydney is, oh, not necessarily Sydney, but Australia in general. It's pretty much, that is Sydney in a nutshell. Of course, the drinking culture and that sort of thing still exists, but in terms of, like, Sully mentioned the COVID situation in Australia. I mean, I don't necessarily agree, Sully, it wasn't bad here. It was very much lockdown. I think the difference was that when we had our, like, 1 hour or 2 hours of activity, we could walk around the beach. Whereas in the UK, it may have been pissing with rain, or there's nowhere really to go in the UK unless you're walking to a pub or whatever it might be. Whereas Australia, you could literally walk out to some of the best places in the world. I think that was the biggest difference for us, because we had people got balconies, they're out in the balcony. So it was the UK, if you're in a tiny flat with 2 or 3 kids, that is rough, man. Pissing with rain outside.
Yeah.
And then that's when you hit the bevy and fuck it, I'm just going to get pissed. Nothing else to do. Whereas in Australia, you could just sit in the balcony, chill, get some tunes on, have a barbecue. Very different.
The families, like, because I can't imagine what that was like.
Nah.
Yeah, because you'd still have to do your day job. I remember doing my day job and it was fine, but like if you had 2 or 3 kids running around at home with your partner who you don't normally see for those 8 hours.
Yeah, mate, it's intense.
Jeez.
Yeah, my girls were kind of, they were like 13, 14, 15, so they could kind of look after themselves, and it wasn't that 4, 5, 6 age where it's really hands-on and the homeschooling. We had to literally be a teacher. You know, I mean, we weren't kind of dismissive of it. We were just like, just crack on, girls, go and do what you've got to do with your Zoom calls. And, you know, and I had a garden and all that kind of stuff. I had a home gym. And so, yeah, very, very, very lucky. I had my ice bath in the back. Where now, fast forward, because since I've got divorced, unfortunately, and I'm in a flat and other bits and pieces, sometimes the idea, kind of the thought crosses my mind, what if something like that's happened again and I haven't got a garden? I miss a garden so bad. And like you mentioned, then you just kind of think about other people's realities with just no outdoor space, and I wonder people's mental health went through the roof because, intense.
And one of the questions we normally ask at the beginning is, what does mental health mean to you? So considering like COVID, all the stuff that you've done, what does mental health mean to you day to day?
I feel like I should know this, Chris. I suppose what comes to mind is, and I've kind of loosely shared about it in a different way, but just what sobriety means is state of mind, and I think it is kind of state of mind. It's like, okay, how am I dealing with things? How am I managing my emotions? How am I navigating through life? You know, am I giving myself the best opportunity to deal with what's coming? And you know, it's a bit of a, you know, there's loads of contradictions in there, like nothing matters, everything matters. We've got all the time in the world, but actually you need to crack on now because you don't know what's around the corner. So, you know, how am I kind of handling all these, you know, this mindset, you know, and knowing that as a consequence, this come up in our workshop yesterday, I think, is coming back to me now. But if you want to push and reach your full potential and you want to explore what you're capable of and follow your curiosities and create and build and, you know, give back, things happen. You know, you're in process, you're dealing with other human beings that are maybe not on the same page as you and maybe want something and not telling you and wants, you know, and then you're just in the mix of it all, and you know, and it's challenging and it's up and down and it's a bit like snake and ladders, and some you feel like you're winning and all of a sudden 2 or 3 things happen at once and it fucking knocks you for 6. And you know, I've just kind of lost a lot just for a little bit a business venture, and which didn't, you know, it didn't quite go to plan. I got divorced and other bits, and you know, they're big heavy things, and I'm a dad and I take that very seriously. So yeah, I suppose stripping all that back, okay, am I giving my best opportunity to deal with that? You know, am I open-minded enough to, you know, how am I supporting myself physically and mentally? You know, and am I judging things? Oh, I don't want to do that. It's a load of shit. Or I don't need to do that. Or they need to do that because they're mad and he's mad. It's like, okay, am I mad? You know what I mean? And do I do a bit of breath work? Do I do a bit of journaling? Do I do a bit of Tai Chi? Do I do a bit of walking? All these kind of opportunities are out there. And if I don't like that, I can try that. If I didn't like that, I don't, you know, you can pick these things up. So I suppose if you push yourself into a corner and deny it and you get resentful and you start to get really bitter, then, you know, the mental health goes down, because it is a funky place, the world, and it is complex. And sometimes it is that kind of, what the hell is all this about? It gets so disheartening, all the politics, all the agenda, all the separation, all the divide. Sometimes it's like, this is how hell is described, you know, and you could be in Bondi and, like you said, one of the best places in the world, and you look out and you've got the sea, or you could be somewhere else. And I suppose it's about how our perspective on things, you know, and the choices that we make, and just having hope, because if you are in a certain environment and you are products of that environment, it's hard to see a way out of it. You know, a bit like me and my pals, you know, not so extreme because there's some more absolute extreme examples, but if you're around certain people that are doing certain things and acting in certain ways, you're going to do it. And then all of a sudden you put yourself in others, and you live, you know, being in just around this place, like Bondi Beach in the last 2 or 3 days, you can sense that there's a decent enough energy here that, you know, it isn't impossible for you after a few days to tap into that, and bang, you know, your life could change. But but then, as I've said before, it all boils down to how much I want it, how much I want this stuff, and because, yeah, you know, I said the darkness is.
So I think environment is a big thing, and like there is the nature versus nurture thing. But yeah, like one of the things I would say about Bondi and even Sydney and even Australia is from an environment point of view, you're in a pretty good place. It doesn't mean that you still can't have all these issues, but at least the environment here is a pretty safe.
Yeah, I'll say the way I kind of describe that maybe is you've got half a chance, because I think we all know people that on the outside look like they've got everything. They've got, you know, from a financial point of view, they've got a lot of what maybe a lot of people want to get, and they're still deeply unhappy, you know, and they haven't got that joy, you know, they can't find joy in much, and, you know, they haven't got that inspiration, and that's why I love doing what I do. I do what I do for free if I could, and I do most of the time, but it's really important to me, you know, and I trust the outcome of that, where maybe, you know, it will work out where everyone wins and it all stacks up. And that's where you kind of got to strip it back to think, okay, what actually matters here? My time on earth, you know, and, you know, how do I want to spend that? And I think, you know, it's a generational thing as well, but I think that kind of mainstream mentality is coming more and more about, actually, do you know what? I don't need that. I don't want that. Actually, that minimal kind of life, as long as I've got this, as long as I can go out and got a level of freedom and lifestyle, and it's not just an Australian thing. I think a lot of people now that are coming up are looking at all this politics and agenda and attachment and kind of this debts and mortgages, and thinking, fuck that. No, thank you very much. I don't want that.
That's one of the things I think COVID did give us. I think it did put health and wellness at the forefront, and everyone thought life
accelerated a lot.
Yeah, life is too short, and I don't have the stats on this, but I feel like the drink culture has to be coming down a bit, like globally. I mean, it's still there, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just saying it because it's more impactful on my own.
Yeah, like smoking's going out, isn't it? That's I think alcohol, but I think it's being replaced with like antidepressants and kind of other, you know, prescription things. So listen, these things will always exist, and people always use them because
we've got addictive personalities.
We've got addictive personalities, and I think the messaging on the world is to kind of, you know, largely creates a lot of anxiety, and, you know, the way that we're kind of built and we manage that, and it's so easy, you know, it's so accessible now, and then you're just in that constant feedback loop of wanting to give up this and do that, and knowing it's not right, and then, you know,
because it can also be the most trivial things. Like for me, I found food has been a real, like, I've been actually really realizing this, that food has become almost like my addictive thing at the moment where I want to just eat something from a comfort place and it actually makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And I'm now latching onto that as a sense of validation, which is, it's like anything. If you abuse anything, no matter what it is, it can be bad for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is.
Even running, you know, and like I said, what can go for you can go against you. If you're anything, you know, can kind of, quickly turn into something. So, so the mental health side of things is always just trying to manage the mind, managing the situations, and also just having maybe conversations that are very tricky that not a lot of people want to have, and they put it up, you know, they put it off, and it's like, I'll do that tomorrow, and before you know it, a week's gone, a month's gone, a year's gone, and then you're just kind of holding on to this energy and space, which isn't yours only, but it's because, you know, we think something bad's going to happen, and because of how people react, and, you know, how we all coexist is the biggest challenge, you know, and so, you know, that's what I'm kind of fighting for.
I've been reading a few bits on things like procrastination, and people just think it's like an ignorance thing, but they're linking now a lot of procrastination back to unresolved trauma, and procrastination is just a way of you avoiding having to deal with it. And even with ADHD, I've seen some recent stuff coming out now that, you know, it was labeled as a disease, but they're saying it actually is impacted from a family perspective, that if there's trauma in the family, the parents fight and things like that, that you check out as a child because you don't know how to deal with it. If you check out over and over and over and over again, that becomes a behavioral trait. So when you become an adult, that's why your attention span is so low, because you've trained yourself into being able to check yourself out, which I was like, wow, that's really fascinating to think of it in that sense. That a lot of, and this is what I really believe, you mentioned you've got a 50-50 chance. You're born with a certain level of DNA and all that hereditary stuff, but I actually think environment plays a more important role than
environment dictates performance, mate. That's something we say with all the athletes we work with, like, and it's obviously a different scale, but environment dictates performance, from like in terms of where you live, going to the beach and what you can access, but at the same time, even your workspace. Like for me, COVID was the start of me being forced to work from home. I don't like working from home, but much prefer being out and doing things. But then even where your desk is, where your computer is in your house, is it in a certain location? Some people do it on the couch, which could be detrimental. Some people do it in a certain area where there's no distractions. Then some people go to cafes, etc. Some people need to find the environment, or even create their own environment that dictates the best performance for them, and that includes the people around them. Maybe it's music, maybe it's not, maybe it's the weather, maybe it's not, maybe it's access to half the things. And I think that happens. What the good thing about that is, we're in control a lot of that a lot of the time. So it's not as easy just to pack up and move countries, etc. It can be done. You start having control of that. But in terms of your house, I think a lot of low-hanging fruits lie within a place you're in a lot of the time. So if you're at home, you do work from home, and you feel like I'm unproductive, I'm procrastinating, then you can maybe look at it, rather than try to do anything extreme, just look at first and foremost, what is my environment? Is my phone here? And we spoke about this in the last podcast, Sully. Like, where's my desk facing? Is there any other distractions? Like, can I hear the neighbours going about music? Like, what is happening there? And I think a lot of people could probably find that their procrastination does dissipate a little bit when they have a bit more structure to their own environment, and then going from there. Because we all know that was the feeling. You go on holiday, nothing's changed in your life, but you just change your environment, and it's it straight away. You're bouncing. Here we go. You're in the pool. Everything's brilliant again. Your life's the exact same. You're just in a different place, and for whatever reason, or when the sun comes out, it's like the sun comes out, people are straight out. Everything's brilliant again. But everything in your life's remained the same. And it's crazy how that can work. But I think that's a really low hanging fruit for people, is to try and create the best environment for them. And like you alluded to, Mark, which I agree massively, is I think nowadays, hopefully, people are going more minimalistic with things rather than trying to just collect more and more shit. I've found myself throwing out more stuff, taking longer periods of time to decide, do I even need that? Like, that would be class to have, or that would be class to go and do, or take on another role, maybe work-wise, take another role and an opportunity on, or buy a new thing, or get a mortgage, whatever it might be. Going, but what would it look like if I didn't do that? Like, how different would it be? Would it be that big of a, like, would that be in a better headspace? And my mindset now has went to, this is from a personal standpoint of my mental health, of, right, that is brilliant. I know that would help me financially. It might help me like network more. It might get more opportunities. It might help my family. However, if I took that on, where would my mindset be? I'd probably be more stressed out. I'd have less time with my friends and family, etc., which makes me happy. I'd less time to travel, which makes me happy. Then really thinking, I'm just going to have to say no to that. Yes, I've now got less stuff, but then it becomes your life becomes a lot simpler in that regard. And I think I do agree. I'm meeting more and more people who are starting to second guess the old school mentality of you need to do this and you need to do this, like the book of life. This is, you need to go and do that. And then, oh, you're 36. How come you've not got this now? And you're 32. How come, like, what? There's no rules here. Like, I'm living, I don't have what you've got, but I'm perfectly happy. You might be happy as well. Crack on, and vice versa. And I think that's some great points you made there, mate. It was good to listen to. Brilliant.
It's like asking that why, keep saying why, and if you're
7 layers of why,
if you're unstuck, then what are you doing it for? And saying yes to things and realizing that your time is money, whatever your expertise is. And like, we're all kind of business owners. Like, our hourly rate is a high level. It's a premium rate. And like, to get away, I used to be like, yes, because you're just trying to succeed. But that's just detrimental to you in the long run. You have to kind of really, laser focus that and prioritize yourself. Otherwise, you can't get anything done.
Yeah, and that's when, self-awareness, you hope. I mean, self-awareness is one thing, but it's what you do with it, and like you said, you've got to act on some of this stuff and just play around with it. You just kind of described it perfectly, really. Just play around with this, kind of the alternative. Just play with it, even if it doesn't go nowhere, just for a split second or 5 minutes, just, okay, what would this feel like, and then you haven't got to act on that first thought. There's always that kind of one beyond it. And then you start to question, and then, you kind of got your intuition there, and then you start to trust yourself a little bit, and then you open, you can ask other people, and, you don't then start to go down the avenue of asking multiple people, because then that's another example of just not getting something done. You want to act as well and start to trust your own judgment with it. And that just comes with experience, and hopefully you don't fuck up too many times where, then the alarm bells are ringing. And then it's like, okay, you need to have a little look here, because there's something in common with all this stuff, and it's you. You're in the middle of all of it.
Yeah.
So and then that's just the journey. Okay, how can we get through this?
So Mark, we always finish on these 3 quick fire questions that we ask everybody, and it's been really fascinating over the 30 plus episodes that we've done over 2 seasons, the answers that people have come up with. And there's been lots of variances, but also a lot of similarities. So the first one is, out of 10, where do you think the world is in terms of mental health awareness?
Or depends who you surround yourself with. Again, if you listen to the news, or is it 10 the best, yeah? Is in a good place?
Yeah,
okay. If you listen to the news and stuff like that, I would say is probably a 4. My reality, i.e. kind of what I see and what I surround myself with, is probably a 7, because even this morning, I know it's a quick fire, but there's amazing things that happen and they exist, and there's lots of amazing people that's creating amazing spaces for people. And so it's not all doom and gloom. It's just, you just need to turn up, because they do exist.
That is an interesting point, because you mentioned, like, now we're more connected. We see the global news every day. That's a lot, and it is easy to fall in. And I do it all the time, going, "Oh fuck, I give up. Like, the world is fucked." You go on, but you have to kind of have that positive attitude of like, well, let me stick in my lane. And there was some artist I think saw about it. He said he was sick of feeling guilty about what was going on in the world, and he just decided, no, I'm just going to do whatever I can in my own little lane, and that's all I can do.
Take
and you got to and trust the process that everybody else will have that, and it's that kind of power of one, but you can actually make a lot of impact on. Now that's great, and I think the other layer to that question, let's say, is depends where you are, right? Because we've had a lot of international guests as well, and maybe let's say the scenarios in Australia versus Ireland or Indonesia or South Africa or whatever, it can vary depending on your location, right? Yeah.
Listen, there's always stuff that needs to be done. There's always more that can be done, but then also things don't happen overnight. We're talking generationally. Things take time. We just need patience. There's no instant gratification with this, and there's complex issues, but we're getting there. And
that's the exciting thing. Look, both of us are dads. Hopefully Gary will be his own dad at one point if he wants kids. Maybe not. That's okay as well. But, to think of us as dads talking about this now, and think even one generation ago, your dad and my dad would not be doing this ever. Ever. Never mind.
Things are happening. Yeah. Things are absolutely happening.
So hopefully the future is bright. The second one out of the 3 is, where is your own mental health out of 10 right now?
I would say, if you asked me this 6 months ago, which you didn't, I was just knee deep in grief and loss and divorce and stuff like that, and just managing my way through that. it was, well, you can answer this two ways. It was maybe a 3 or a 4, but I knew that give time, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
So then you could say it was a 10, you know, because
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely aware of it.
yeah, I was just going through it and I wasn't escaping it. I was feeling it and I was felt what needs to be felt. So right now, where I am in this week and everything that's happening and fast forward in 6 months where I was Easter to now and just knowing where I am is, yeah, you know, I'm a steady 7. You know, I've still got a lot of stuff that happened that is still there and evident, and it's going to take me years to get out of, but that's okay because that's there, and I'll just chip away at it. And
then look, the last question, and it was actually something I was pondering as you were chatting about your sobriety and the journey you've been on, and it's the question itself is, if there was one thing that you could recommend on any day to do to improve your mental health, what would that be? And the extra layer I was going to say is, like, you're human like everybody else. You must get a bad day where you go, like, the temptations maybe arise. Obviously, you've learned a lot to cope with that. But when you get a day like that yourself, like, what's the one thing that you would always go to try and get you through that day?
I suppose these days that I absolutely adore my daughters. Like, love them. It sounds like an obvious thing to say, but I love them. Not obsessed with them. You know, I'll show up in how I need to show up, and I don't kind of suffocate them. We've got a really good vibe, really good relationships. I just think my girls, you know, and everything that I do, they come first fundamentally.
Quality, mate. That's superb. Great answer.
Awesome.
Great answer. Oh, mate, brilliant chat, mate. It was really good to listen to you as well, mate.
So today is Friday. The days have gotten a bit muddled at the moment. The Run Grateful is tomorrow.
Yes.
So we might be able to get this out quick enough. People could come down. We're going to be in Bondi all day, right through to Sunday. But for anyone that wants to get in touch with you, Mark also runs workshops. We actually held a gratitude workshop here at Nimbus on brand today with the team, and which was an amazing experience. I would highly recommend. You did that with corporates, right? But how do people get involved? Social media, email, contact? Tell us.
Yeah, I suppose the most important thing for us that we try to message out is just to go and experience a grateful mile for yourselves. You know, don't take my word for it. Go and jump into it, and just before you go out, just focus, you know, on, as a headline, you know, in the simplest form, focus on something or someone you're grateful for, and just for that mile, think about it and jump into that feeling, and then if that kind of, you know, tickles your feathers or whatever the word is, then rungrateful.com is a place to kind of get a sense of other opportunities to get involved in what we do and how we could support you in your next steps with that kind of mindful journey around movement, really.
And you're on Instagram, all those?
Yeah, it's all on the website, but Run Grateful Official on Instagram, and we're not too proactive on other things, but, you know, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Awesome. Well, look, Mark, thanks so much for your time.
Good.
I love sharing your story.
No worries.
And Run Grateful and all the great things that you're doing. Gratitude, as we've spoken about this week, is something that's only come into my life really in the last year or so. And I can't speak more highly of it and the impact. And I know even if you're out there and thinking, I'm not sure if it's for me, just stick with it, because I have definitely seen it impact me positively. So I'll be continuing to do that like throughout the rest of my life, really. But yeah, look, if you're around tomorrow, we'll be at the beach from Saturday morning through to Sunday. So we'll see you then. And if not, check out Mark on Run Grateful.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Good man.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks.